Volume 6 of RWBY is a mere 10 days away. And yesterday, Rooster Teeth actually gave us our first little look as to what to expect from Volume 6. We got a brief trailer. It's only about a minute and a half long, only about a minute of that being actual footage of the season, the rest being promotions for their other shows and series, but it is very interesting and we can take away quite a few things from it. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below to both the Rooster Teeth first video and the video that has been uploaded to YouTube on Rooster Teeth's channel, so you guys can check that out first before watching this review, as, of course, this review will spoil the trailer. The first thing that stands out right when the trailer starts is that it's actually narrated by Salem. The first 30 seconds or so are the only time when she speaks, but what she says is very important, and we can take a little bit away from it. She starts off by saying it's important to not lose sight of what drives us. And while she's saying this, it's depicting a scene of Team RWBY along with Crow and Oscar, as well as a new character that we have no idea who it is, but sitting on Yang's bike as Yang's pushing it along through the snow. And this kind of has some underlying meaning in that, well, the time ahead is going to be very tough. Things are going to happen, people are going to be hurt, people might be lost, and it's going to be very disheartening and very hard. Implying that it's important not to lose sight of what your overall goals are, and that they will need to, harden up and focus on what it is they actually want to achieve. Of course, taking her words at face value as it goes on, it implies a few different things. She goes on to say, for the things that drive us. Love, depicting an image of Ruby, Weiss, and Nora along with Crow. It looks like what in a shopping mall. Justice, as it shows multiple white Fang members who appear to have been slaughtered. And reverence, which is the most interesting of the three, as it depicts a bunch of people bowing down to someone who appears to be levitating. Yet another new character likely who's going to be introduced into the series, somewhere along the line who has people worshipping them, supposedly as a god. After this, it shows Salem herself, while she says, "But the moment you put your desires ahead of my own, they will be lost to you." Now this is quite important, because at the end it also switches to Tyrion talking to Emerald, as Emerald has her weapons out and she looks pretty terrified. So, if we take what Salem's words were overall, it's important not to lose sight of what drives you. Love, justice, reverence, but the second you put it ahead of my own, they will be lost to you. Well, what character do we know in the last volume that put her desires a little bit ahead of Salem's plans? Cinder. Cinder put her desire for vengeance against RWBY ahead of Salem's plan, ahead of getting the relic. And yes, this could be taken as a hint that Cinder may be alive, or it might be implying that Salem is going to turn against Emerald, considering Tyrion was looking quite aggressive towards her. Not sure if Tyrion and Emerald are actually going to fight. Frankly, I think Tyrion would win in that instance, but it could mean that Cinder's alive, but Salem's not going to be very forgiving. Granted, if Cinder is alive, I don't think Salem would outright kill her, because the Fall Maiden powers would still be useful, and risking the powers going to someone else just seems unnecessary. But there's going to be a really short leash on Cinder if she ends up going back to Salem. After Salem's finished saying this, it goes through a little montage of different scenes that we are going to see throughout the series, and there are a couple of noteworthy ones. In this montage, we're introduced to a few new characters and also a few new scenes as to where the team is likely going. We know they're going to Atlas, and what's depicted, as was with the first scene, there's snow in a lot of the scenes. Atlas is a very cold place, so they actually are going to make it to Atlas. I had previously thought that maybe they were going to be denied entry to Atlas, considering the borders are now closed, and Weiss even had a hard time getting out, let alone trying to get back in. So it's going to be interesting to see how that entire thing plays out, and there were quite a few scenes showing a battle on a train in particular. And throughout this montage, there also depicted a few new characters. On the train, it showed the person who was wearing the goggles back in the first scene of the trailer, and it looked like an old lady who seems very similar to, if any of you guys have watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, Old Lady Katara. Just, that's what stands out to me. Looks like they're wearing the Water Tribe robe, has the white hair up in a bun. The goggles are new, but, you know, waterbender, anyone? But depicts that, and it also depicts a scene showing 3 other characters talking to another hooded character. We can see that there's some of the credit cards of money that are on the table, as well as, you know, looking kind of high class and mob boss type of people. I'd say more along the lines of merchants, personally, but again, we'll have to wait and see what exactly this is going to depict. Another brief but important scene that we see is Salem talking to Emerald, and Emerald has a shocked look on her face. What Salem might be telling her, we don't actually know, but I could guess it might be something along the lines of what Salem's actual plans are, what's the state of the world actually is, the truth behind things, potentially what Salem might do to Emerald if she ever decided to betray Salem. And just a hunch, but I think that what is said in this conversation might drive Emerald's actions a little bit throughout this volume and potentially the coming ones after this. We also see a scene where RWBY is staring at the Relic, which is at that moment just lying on the ground. Looks like potentially outside of a cargo ship or something like that. Again, snow-covered, so potentially an atlas, but it's lying on the ground and only RWBY is there. She looks a little bit concerned looking at it, so as to what's happening with that, obviously Salem is targeting Team RWBY and everyone to get the Relic, because that's her overall goal, as far as we know. So something may have happened there. There could also be potentially someone else after the Relic. We saw what I assume to be merchants before. Potentially, if someone in the, shall we say, dark underbelly of the world of Remnant knew that the relics existed, they would fetch a high price on the underground market, on the black market, because, you know, here's 1/4 of what you need for unlimited power. Give me all the money you have in an entire country. Probably some person in power would pay that. I doubt that's where it's actually going to go, but it would be interesting to see if there's more than 2 factions, that being Ozpin and Salem's, just fighting for the Relic. And now, potentially the most important scene that we see is actually Oscar on the ground, on his hands and knees, in front of Team RWBY, reaching out, and Yang and Blake look kind of pissed off, and RWBY looks pretty shocked as well. So something is going to happen that actually might make Team RWBY turn against Ozpin or Oscar. Likely not Oscar, because he's fairly innocent in all this and just had Ozpin's soul bonded to him unwillingly, almost. And this just stands out to me, because they were all fighting for Ozpin, and now they're turning against him, from the looks of it, at least. And whether they actually do, I doubt RWBY would actually turn against him, but this might be a point where Blake and even, or Yang and even Blake might end up leaving Ozpin. So things are definitely going to get rough and rocky in this overall volume. And one thing we also see, we see Adam in the White Fang lair, throne room, I guess, where Adam has sliced the actual throne. And since we saw the White Fang members potentially slaughtered, well, blood everywhere, looks like they're pretty dead, so I'd say slaughtered, I think Adam has forsaken the White Fang, and I think it might be safe to conclude that after this, the White Fang that we knew throughout the first few volumes as the Faunus conglomerate that was against the human race is going to be no more. And the one that's going to be led by Blake's father, Gira, is going to come back as one that's striving for peace rather than to trying to essentially overthrow the humans. The actual trailer ends off with Team RWBY and Crow standing on the top of the train. Yang asks RWBY, okay, what's the plan? She says, don't let anyone else die. Whether that's, well, obviously it is referencing, you know, Penny and Pyrrha and the people that have been lost so far, but I'm wondering if there is a bit of a time skip or something that maybe something else happened. I kind of doubt it, because there would be a little bit more of an explanation having to happen with that, and considering they're on the train, things are going to have to happen. I don't think that anyone else is going to die at this point. Could easily be wrong, but one of the driving motivations of RWBY is, you know, that she's lost people. That people have died in this, and she doesn't want anyone else to die. She wants to prevent all of that from happening. So as to what we can expect from Volume 6, we're definitely going to experience what Atlas is actually like, at least part of it. We're going to be introduced to new characters. We are going to get to see Adam follow a path of what looks like vengeance. Although Salem called it justice, that is quite ironic, because that Adam got justice by being, you know, completely embarrassed and thrown to the side, but unfortunately for the White Fang members who maybe just wanted equality for the Faunus and got swept up in the overall White Fang movement, just like Blake did at the beginning of the series, they didn't get justice. They got slaughtered by Adam. I had initially hoped that maybe Adam would go along the line of possibly having a redemption arc, sort of. I know there's no really redeeming all the horrible things that he's done, but some sort of comeback and maybe redemption, because in the trailer that we had seen for his character Short, he had thrown away the mask, and I had kind of interpreted that as him throwing away the facade of a monster. But at this scene, he's still wearing the mask, he's still extremely pissed off, he's just killed a whole bunch of members, and he's falling further and further down that rabbit hole. He's following the path of vengeance, and if it continues that way, he's definitely going to die in the series. If it continues that way. I really hope his character survives at least a couple more volumes, because there's a lot more that can be done with his character. I really love his design, his semblance, everything. So I fully hope that he goes on. If he continues on this path, he really won't. We're going to get an explanation of the relics. If we don't, I am going to be very upset by that, because the relic themselves, we don't know much about. As I said in my previous video, there's things that could potentially be with the relics, but we don't even know really what they are. Sure, creation, destruction, choice, and knowledge, but beyond that, are they the physical properties of those ideals? Can those ideals be manipulated and things like that? I went over all this before, but we don't know what their physical presence are. Are they just concentrations of magic? Are they some just crystal sphere or just object that doesn't do anything until brought together? All of these things. So Adam's Warpath, the relics are going to need to be explained. There's going to be other characters brought in that are going to be relevant to at least this volume, relevant to the Atlas arc, for lack of a better term. So they might be in the next volume as well, Volume 7, potentially Volume 8 if they're in Atlas that long. And we didn't actually see Ironwood at all in the trailer, so I don't know if they're going to make it all the way to Atlas Academy, where Ironwood is, where the next relic would be. It would make sense that they would get there in Volume 7, because then, you know, that would kind of follow the pattern that RWBY's setting up. You know, Volume 1 was kind of the introduction to everyone, then Volume 2, still kind of lighthearted, Volume 3 hit us hard, Volume 4, you know, a little bit darker than Volume 2, but still lighthearted compared to Volume 5, where there was that climactic battle. And then, you know, this one still setting up the overall scene, and then Volume 7 again would give us that climactic battle. Would make sense, follow the pattern, but hey, I won't mind if we stay in Atlas a little bit longer. So there's a lot that is going to be weighing on our protagonists' minds. They're going to have to go through a lot of mental stress and just the overall tone of this. There are going to be a lot of battles that they're going to have to fight, but we did see that, you know, especially in the beginning scene, Team RWBY is not with Team Juniper. at that point, Ren, Nora, and Jean were not with them. So whether they went ahead to Atlas somewhere else, or whether they took a roundabout way, I mean, they were seen in the trailer, so it's not like they're not going to be in the volume overall, but, you know, I think there's going to be some divergence in there at some point. And how that's actually going to turn out is going to be interesting. Whether they actually left because of Ozpin or what have you, but something is going to happen. Ozpin is not going to be in the, well, overall, in the past few volumes, he's not been in the highest standing. So that's going to be changing throughout Volume 6 as well, especially with the scene that we saw where Oscar's on his hands and knees reaching out to Team RWBY, and, you know, they're not looking too fond of him. So things are definitely going to be changing in Volume 6. The overall standing and relationships of characters are going to continually change as they have throughout the volumes. Whether Ozpin is seen as, you know, the side to choose to fight against Salem, or whether they are going to choose to go their own way, is going to be debatable. And if that happens, what is Crow going to do? Is he going to choose to side with RWBY and Yang, his family? Or is he going to end up choosing Ozpin, who he's followed for years? That's going to be an interesting turning point for Crow's character, as well as everyone else's. So, and then there's also the fact that we see little grainy Katara with her goggles and everything. Atlas is known for its technology, hence the train, hence the goggles that lady has, and we're probably going to see other forms of technology there. Whether we're going to see more Atlesian Knights, because I'm guessing that program probably got a lot of flack after it was taken control of back in the Battle of Beacon and was broadcast on TV to everyone. Guessing that program might have been put on hold. I don't know. I kind of doubt it if Jacques Schnee was funding it, as well as, you know, that's the main majority of the Atlesian military, but, you know, I could ramble on for probably a good hour or two about this, so let me know what you guys think, what your opinions on the trailer are, what you're looking forward to in Volume 6, if there's anything in particular that you're hoping to see that you didn't expect to see in the actual trailer, things of that sort. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you like, dislike, everything. I read all your comments and I respond to all of them that I can. You know, life is busy and everything, but I look forward to reading them, and I'll see you guys in the next video.